There's blood on the door. Kick the door. I got you.
Police department, let me see your hands!
And I walked him back into the garage. She walks up to me and goes, I did it. With a smile on her face, and I looked at the ground and I was like, I'm really certain.
Really certain about the time.
You've seen the initial police report. But what if the story you know about the sword killing of Grace Jennings is only the first layer of a much deeper, darker truth? The evidence from that Santa Fe garage points to a brutality far beyond a simple argument. We're going to unpack the evidence that contradicts the suspect's claims and explore the psychological descent into a jealousy-fueled rage that led to this shocking crime. The first narrative presented to police came from a frantic 911 call. It described a chaotic scene, an altercation that had spiraled out of control. Officers arrived at the Santa Fe home expecting to find evidence of a sudden violent struggle. But the reality inside the garage was starkly different. The environment contradicted the story of a spontaneous fight. Instead, the scene suggested a grim and deliberate outcome. The presence of the weapon was the first major discrepancy. This was not a kitchen knife grabbed in a heated moment, or a blunt object from the garage floor. It was a longsword, a medieval-style weapon that implies a conscious choice. Such an object is not typically kept for casual use. It is an instrument that requires space to wield and intent to deploy. Isaac Apodaca's initial statements to the police painted a picture of a horrified bystander. He claimed to have witnessed an event he was powerless to stop, positioning himself as someone who happened to be in the wrong place at an unimaginable time. The spatial dynamics of the garage, the precise location where Grace Jennings was found, and the specific nature of the injuries all pointed toward a confrontation that was sustained and intensely personal. The nature of the wounds indicated a level of force and repetition inconsistent with a single, accidental blow. This evidence created a fundamental conflict with the idea of a brief, explosive argument. The sword itself became a central character in the investigation. Its very existence in the context of a domestic dispute raised immediate questions about premeditation. A forensic analysis of the injuries would later detail the angle and power behind the strikes. What does the selection of a sword reveal about the killer's state of mind? Its use transforms the act from a crime of passion into something more calculated. The weapon was a statement, and its presence shattered the initial narrative of a spontaneous fight gone wrong. This glaring inconsistency between the story told to police and the story told by the evidence became the investigation's focal point. It forced detectives to look past the surface and question the complex relationships between everyone involved that night. The garage was no longer just a crime scene. It was a puzzle box of contradictions. Find the relationships between these three individuals. This was not a simple love triangle, but a tangled web of past romances and shifting alliances. Grace's decision to seek refuge in the garage on that final night originated from a separate argument with her fiancé. This choice, intended as a temporary solution to a personal problem, inadvertently placed her directly into the epicenter of a brewing storm. She entered a space that was not neutral territory. The garage represented the shared domain of Kiara and Isaac, making Grace's presence a significant intrusion. Text messages later uncovered by investigators revealed a pattern of communication between Kiara and Isaac that focused on Grace with an unsettling intensity. Their conversations oscillated between a strange obsession and open hostility, indicating a shared preoccupation that went far beyond casual acquaintance. She characterized Grace as the first person she ever loved and the first person she ever truly hated. This profound duality points to a deep emotional instability, a key factor that investigators would scrutinize to understand her state of mind. Such a stark contradiction within a single relationship suggests a psychological turmoil that could easily be manipulated or triggered. Isaac, for his part, maintained connections with both women. This position gave him a unique form of influence, acting as a pivot point between their conflicting emotions. Text messages indicate he was not dissuading Kiara, but encouraging her, using phrases that framed violence in transactional terms. This background of emotional manipulation and perceived betrayal provides the crucial context for what happened next. The stage was set not by chance, but by a deliberate cultivation of resentment. The garage was their territory. The hours Grace Jennings spent in the garage that night were a deceptive calm. Her presence, intended as a temporary refuge from a separate argument, became the catalyst for a plan that had been simmering for some time. Digital evidence reveals this was not a decision made in a single moment of rage. Text messages exchanged between Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca that evening show a chilling level of coordination. In one exchange, Isaac asks, "What would you like me to do?" "Stab her." Kiara's response, "I don't know. I don't have the energy to do." "I don't know, man," suggests a discussion about the act of killing was already underway. The language implies a transactional consideration, not a spontaneous emotional outburst. This digital trail stands in stark contrast to the psychological defense Kiara would later present. During her interrogation, she introduced the possibility of dissociative identity disorder, describing multiple personalities she called Abby, Jinx, and others. She stated, "My best guess is that I have DID, but I'm not 100% certain." This claim created a fragmented narrative of the event. She alternated between asserting she had no memory, saying, "There's a chunk missing. There's a chunk missing. I don't understand," and suggesting other identities were in control. Whether this was a genuine psychological state or a strategic defense, it creates a profound contradiction with the physical reality of the crime. The act of killing someone with a sword is deliberate and visceral, requiring sustained physical action that seems incompatible with a dissociated consciousness. The planning extended beyond the act itself. Further text messages show discussions about the aftermath, specifically about cleaning up. One message asks, "What do we do about the mess?" The reply was, "We burn it, and I'll buy new blankets and bed." This conversation about disposing of evidence indicates forethought and a clear understanding of the consequences. It points to a shared intent to not only commit the act, but to conceal it. Isaac's attempt to later position himself as a helpless observer who merely returned to the garage to find the deed done becomes irreconcilable with his active participation in these text exchanges. He was not a bystander. He was a participant in the lead-up. Why did Grace remain in that garage? She stayed because she believed it was a safe haven. She was unaware that the people she turned to for safety had already begun plotting against her. The brutality of the killing, combined with the digital evidence of planning and cleanup, indicates this was the culmination of a shared intent. The night ended not with an argument, but with an execution, leaving investigators to untangle the sequence from cold evidence and deeply contradictory statements. Kiara McCulley pleaded guilty to aggravated second-degree murder and conspiracy, receiving a 30-year sentence. Isaac Apodaca rejected a plea deal, and his trial remains ongoing. These proceedings offer a form of legal closure, yet they cannot fully articulate the human capacity for such brutality. The case forces a difficult consideration of relationships built on control rather than trust. It reveals how jealousy, when weaponized by manipulation and emotional volatility, can escalate with devastating finality. The consequences extend far beyond the courtroom, leaving a permanent mark on all involved.